Welcome back to Jane's Stories of Life. Today I want to talk to you about connections. We are connected in so many ways. We are not alone here in this world. We have so many connections because of our families, our schools, the jobs we've had, the different activities that we've been involved in. This week for me seemed to be a week of connections related to my years at Ohio State University. The other day I had a phone call from one of my line sisters. When I say line sisters, when you're going through initiation of a fraternity or sorority, and maybe some other social activities as well, the people that are going through the process at the same time with you are often referred to as your line companions, your line sisters, or your line brothers. There were 6 of us at Ohio State in the spring of 1961 who were becoming members of Delta Sigma Theta sorority at the same time. One day this week, I had a call from Mary, who was one of my line sisters. Mary and I have stayed in touch through the years, and we had a good time catching up the other day on the telephone. The following day, I had a message from the daughter of another one of my line sisters, Ray. It was my line sister whose daughter, Monique, I met at Ohio State at one of our Epsilon chapter Delta reunions. Monique, at that point that I learned that Ray had died. I had never, we had not kept in touch, and so from that point on, Monique and I have had a very special relationship. We share a birthday, and so we have been in touch since I think that was maybe 2000, I'm not sure what year it was, but anyway, so that was another connection. Last evening, I had a phone call from the wife of Ron, a friend who also was at Ohio State with me, and his wife called to tell me that Ron had died last week. Ron and I have been in touch quite a bit through the last few years, so I was sorry to hear about that. Through the conversation with his wife, I was connected to the daughter of another friend from Ohio State, whose father, Leonard, had also died, and his daughter was wanting to learn more about his years during those college days. So she and I had a good conversation about that. So, like I said, this seemed to be my week for Ohio State connections. But I have so many other connections as well. I have connections, I love Facebook. And one of the reasons I love Facebook is because that has allowed me to stay connected with old friends. It's allowed me to make connections with lots of new friends. And so it's just, I know everybody is not on Facebook. So it's important, whatever connections I've had, to find ways to communicate. There was another friend from Ohio State. Sometimes you intend to be in touch with someone. You think about them, you say, I must call so-and-so. And that's how it was with another one of our friends, Kathy. I had intended to call our friend Kathy one day, and the day that I had intended to call her, I learned that Kathy had died the day before, and I was just so upset with myself that I had put that off. She'd been on my mind, I just hadn't followed through. So I want to encourage you, if somebody is on your mind, take the time then to reach out, because you never know when that opportunity may present itself again. I have a lot of other connections. I have my connections from the years that I taught. We lived in several different places, so I have connections with various Delta chapters. I certainly had a lot of connections because of my interest in scrapbooking, my 15 years as a creative memories consultant, my 10 years so far for the company forever. I have certainly made a lot of connections lately, or say the last 15 years, with travel, with cruises, and people I've met through those interests. And so, we have connections with our children's friends, their parents, the list, churches, the connections just seem to go on and on. I always say, cherish your memories, but I'm adding to that, cherish your connections. Make sure that you are keeping those connections active. It's so easy, it's much easier now to connect with one another because of technology. I was telling Leonard's daughter that back in the day, we lost touch after college. Many of us lost touch because back then, you either had to write letters and mail them, or if you wanted to make phone calls, you had to pay for long distance phone calls. And the cheaper rates were after 9 o'clock. And so you waited until after 9 o'clock to get the cheaper rates. But most of us, when we finished school, were poor. We couldn't afford to, pay to keep in touch the way that, today we can text, we can call, we can use the internet. I mean, there's just so many different ways to communicate with each other. So I just had connections on my mind when I woke up this morning, and how important they are, and how good you feel when you've connected with somebody from the past. I mean, I've just enjoyed this past week with all the, it brings up all the memories, all the shared experiences, and I've been just excited to be able to share those feelings with others. So as you go through this next year, cherish your connections, cherish your memories, and pass them on.